What's up, guys? Today I'm bringing on one of the best, if not the best, basketball players in the state of Idaho. His name is Liam Campbell from Owyhee High School. Super excited to share this interview with you guys today. And if you are a basketball player, a young basketball player who is aspiring to get to the next level, male or female, and if you're a parent who wants your kid to get to the next level and you want to know how to help them, this is the interview that you need to pay attention to, because Liam is literally going to map out or lay out the blueprint, I should say, on how to do that. He's literally living proof of what it takes to continuously improve in your game and then get to the next level. And he's going to talk about his recruiting process as well, and the things that he had to start doing in his high school career to reach out to certain schools and make sure that he was finding a fit for him, right? As he's continuing to do at this particular point at the time of this recording. So we're going to learn about some of his experiences in high school, how he was able to dedicate himself to the weight room, and how he was able to learn how to play defense and improve in his defensive game, and the coaches that he had, not only in high school, but the coaches he had in club. Shout out Clint Hordeman and Andy Harrington. The things that he learned from those guys, the players that he was around during his high school tenure, and just the different things that he enjoys doing off the court as well. We're going to learn a lot about the sport of basketball, and we're going to learn a lot about Liam Campbell, and we're going to highlight him because he deserves it. This guy plays at an extremely high level. He's known as Baby Bird to a lot of the media out there. He is going to talk about dealing with the pressures of the media too, and like how you can block out the noise and just play the game. We'll talk about his pregame rituals that he does to keep his mind right before tip off, and everything in between, man. Awesome opportunity to learn from Liam Campbell. I've been really wanting to get Liam on the show for like the last 3 years, but I wanted to wait until his high school career was over, as to not, bog him down during his high school career. And now I get the opportunity to chat with him on the show, and I think you guys are going to love it. So I want to give a shout out to everybody who supported. I'd encourage you guys to hit that follow button and get ready for this one. This is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time! Woo!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. My name is Shane Larson, host of the show. Excited to be here with you guys today. So real quick, shout out to everybody who has tuned in over the last 7.5 years. Like I said, I've been doing this show since 2017 and started in my kitchen in my old house, just trying to do something fun while I was finishing up college at the age of 28. And I was 27 when I started it, but it's grown into something a little bit more special than that now. It's more than just a hobby. It's actually a big time show. It's been downloaded in 182 countries, all 50 states, and it's grown worldwide. Thanks in large part to everybody who's been on the show, as well as all those who have listened. Now, with that being said, I'm proud of the accomplishments that we've gotten so far, but I have not grown my YouTube following ever. I never optimized it. I never focused on that until this year. And while I've published content on there, I've never really pushed it. So what I would encourage you guys to do is, if you guys are listening to this, hit me with that follow over on YouTube, or maybe share this with a friend or family member, and maybe consider giving a follow over on YouTube as we continue to build that side of the platform. I've already built the audio audience. Now I want the visual audience. So that's my next steps in this business. But as you guys heard in the introduction, very special interview today. Young man that I've been following for a couple of years now, since he landed in Idaho, won a couple state championships, one of the best players to come through Idaho. His name's Liam Campbell, over at Owyhee High School, and he's getting ready to go on to his collegiate journey now and take the next steps in his basketball career. So Liam, thanks for joining the show, man.
Man, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yes, sir, man. I'm really excited. I apologize for my voice ahead of time, guys. At the time of this recording, we had our first club basketball tournament this last weekend, and typically speaking, I kind of get loud sometimes, and so my voice ends up getting raspy by the end of that. So that's where I'm at right now. But Liam, it's funny. I want to share. I don't think many people know this. Only maybe 2 people. So your head coach, Andy Harrington from Owyhee High School, a friend of mine. I have played basketball against him far before he ever coached at Owyhee and stuff. And so we've known each other for a little while. And I remember him telling me about this, once he was getting the job over at Owyhee, he told me about this guy from California. He's like, dude, you got to keep an eye on this kid from California. He's coming over. Okay. So I kept hearing about this kid, right? This kid from California. There was one time it was in the summer, and I was doing a shooting workout with some of my players that I had coached at Idaho Premier, and they were trying to get some off-season shooting workouts done. So I met them over at home court, and unbeknownst to me, you were there, and I didn't know who you were, but you were on the same court and you were shooting around. You had an Owyhee High School shirt on, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh. And at the time, and this is no offense to anyone, I was just like, oh, he's just like, a kind of a gangly kid at Owyhee. I wonder who he is, right? Well, it wasn't until the season started and then people started posting about the roster and Andy started talking, and I was like, oh, that's the kid from California. And I was like, oh, I've heard a lot of hype about him, but I didn't necessarily see the physical attributes yet. So this is no offense. I'm just like, as a sophomore, I'm like, I wonder if he's going to be able to really do what they say he's going to do. And it took the first time me watching you play, I'm like, oh, snap, dude. Like, he can play. And so I just want you to know, like, you surprised me after I had heard all this stuff. And then I realized who you were. I'm like, there's no way that kid's the kid they were talking about. And then all of a sudden you just started popping off. So question for you. When you got here, your sophomore year in high school, this is Idaho basketball. Compare that, like, what were your feelings coming here as compared to maybe what you had grown up playing in a different state?
I mean, no, that's a great question. I just think there are some big differences when it comes to, playing club in California and then playing high school in California and then going to here. I played in the Mission League in California. It's regarded as one of the best leagues. We got Harvard Westlake, Notre Dame, Chaminade, and they've all had some big time guys go to the next level there. So going to Idaho is a kind of a big change for me. It's not, if I'm being honest, not a lot of collegiate athletes, but I mean, it's still like, one of the biggest differences for me was like, I feel like the fans were like so much more into it here in Idaho. I just feel like the student sections were bigger. Like everything was so much more like bought in to like that school, like that community really surrounded each team. And I thought it was pretty cool, especially my sophomore year, playing with Jack and playing under Andy and all those guys. Like it was special. Like I just feel like the whole community backed us up, especially when we won state that sophomore year. But I would say just probably the skill wise, I mean, it's a little bit more talented in California. Obviously there's more kids, it's a bigger state, but I mean, I think that there are, like, especially our sophomore team or my sophomore year, that team, like we were able to play with California team, especially when we went down to the Damien and we went down to Section 7, like we were opening a lot of eyes. So there are some differences, but I just think like maybe skill level, that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah, overall, I think there's skill across the board. Is probably like you got some talent like yourself here and some others that are across the state. But like I think what I've seen just in my time covering hoops and playing my whole life and like just being around it, I think, yeah, you're right. Like there's skill. Sometimes there's like 1 through 5 could potentially play collegiate basketball. Whereas here, like you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 on the starting 5 that go to the next level, at least at a high level, next level and stuff. So you get a lot of talent out there, and it's just interesting to hear your perspective. Now, when you got here, there was growing up here myself. I mean, I was a Meridian alum back in the day, 2006. But like growing up here, the schools like Rocky Mountain and the school like Owyhee, who, they came in, there's a certain demographic of people. And it disrupted a lot of things as far as just like even the boundaries of schools around here. So people like you had kids coming from different schools. And I would say, okay, I'd venture to say that Owyhee probably had a bad rap as far as like from athletics. And I mean, it's just because people don't like something new. They don't like what's new out there, and they're kind of keeping an eye on it. And what's this school over here? So it felt like, at least to me, that while you guys had a lot of support within the school, it felt like there were some people that were just like hoping that you'd fail.
Yeah.
Right. And you guys stepped up to the plate that your sophomore year, that first year, and just took it to everybody, And I am curious, you mentioned Jack. What was your favorite memory of your sophomore year as you guys basically just started that momentum immediately? It wasn't like you had to build too much. You just started it immediately and took off.
I think just, when I got there, we connected so quickly. Like our chemistry is pretty crazy because usually, like, especially with a bunch of new guys, coming together, it takes a while to get that chemistry. And it wasn't the case for us. I mean, we clicked instantly. And I think probably my favorite memory was going down to the Damien Classic and just opening people's eyes because, I mean, we're playing against, some really athletic, good teams. and they just come in to see us. We're just a bunch of, white guys from Idaho. They're like, oh man, these guys are going to be awful. And then we just open eyes, and we were, just getting some big wins against some really talented teams. So I just think that like we were so connected that year, and it's special. And I think for me, I just kind of learned that we needed to be the villains. We want to be the villains because everyone, they were like, oh man, like they're building a super team at Owyhee. Like this isn't fair. Like I hope like, they get upset or they lose. And we were just kind of took that person like, hey, we got to be the villains. And I think that's what kind of, made us successful that year.
No, I love that, dude. That's cool to hear from a player's perspective. Like I've always been biased for those who are listening that are out of state, out of the state of Idaho. Like I've always been biased towards Meridian. That's just my school and that's just my nature. But I've always thought it was interesting how, and you not being from here, I wonder if you ever get this, but like, I just thought it was interesting how like there's a certain discussion that's always had about Owyhee, but it's almost like they turned a blind eye to the other schools that were similar back when I was playing in like Bora. And I'm not scared to say that. Like, I'm like, dude, Bora was doing this, and I know all the things. So I'm like, why does Owyhee get so much hate? Is it because they're new? I don't understand. It's because you guys were winning immediately is what I really think it was. So
yeah,
it's just interesting, like how people don't like winners. And that's why like 99% of the public just loses all the time. There's one percenters for a reason, and the 1%ers are the ones who enjoy winning. So anyway, I won't get too deep into that and put you in a bind, but I have my own opinions on that conversation there. And one thing I want to ask is like Andy Harrington. Coach Harrington has a style about him. I've known Andy for a while. It's funny because when he would play against us before he quote unquote retired, I'm still trying to get him out of retirement, but when he would play against us, he was like the defensive minded guy. Like he wasn't an offensive threat, but he was defensive minded. And honestly, dude, if people want to make fun, like, I don't know if you guys play against your coach or not, the dude could like, there's not many people that could actually like frustrate me from a shooting standpoint. And he could, like, he would lock onto you and he would not give you any space to even get the ball up. Like he was really good. He'd make you work to get the ball up. And so it felt like he brought that intensity, and his coaching staff brought that intensity and that mindset. Talk to us about like how your practices were and what the culture was like from not only Coach Harrington, but the staff that he brought with him.
Yeah, no. So all 3 years, we've been a defensive minded team, and especially this year. Obviously, we've had talented guys go through our program, but offense doesn't win games, defense does. And he kind of nailed that into our heads that, like, we could, if we play bad and still guard the way that we know we could guard, we could win games. And, obviously defense isn't that fun. When you think about basketball, everyone wants to, focus about shooting and making stuff, but defense is kind of that nitty gritty part that you need to have. And, he really helped me understand that, like, if I want to play at the next level, I have to be able to guard. Like, I won't be able to touch the floor if I can't guard, these high-level dudes. So that's one of the biggest things he brought into our program, just like, hey, we got to be a defensive-minded team before offense. And he says offense, will take care of itself. But, being under a coach like Andy, it's been really special. And everyone on the staff, like Coach Graham, Coach Bauman, Coach Nugent, all those guys are just – they're high-level guys that could honestly, they could coach at the next level if they really wanted to. So like having kind of a coaching staff like that just behind you and just helping you, and their main focus was to just get us ready for the next level. And I feel like I don't regret moving to Idaho at all, and I just feel like they put me in the best. They just put me on the best path to be successful at the next level.
That's so sick, dude. So with defense and needing and understanding the importance of it, I'm glad you said that. Like, I want the kids that are like watching this, right, or parents that are watching this to be like, okay, so this is Liam Campbell. Multiple player of the years, depending on which place you're voting for, but we're talking every place. You got player of the year awards, like standout player, this and that from MaxPreps, all the things, right? So you're always up there in the conversation, top player in Idaho for like the last 3 years straight. So they'll look at it and they'll be like, okay, he just said that you have to play defense to be able to see the floor in college. So knowing that from your perspective, because I think a lot of people probably just think of you as like this offensive standout, but you understand the defensive side of the ball. What did you do to improve in that aspect of your game outside of the practices with your team?
I think one of the biggest things was I would just go on YouTube or kind of like just study elite guards and how they guard. Because again, like you could score as much as you want, but if you can't guard at the next level, you're not going to get minutes. Like, and that's just how it is. I mean, I know a lot of players who like they can't really guard and they don't play as much as they wanted to at the high school level, at the college level. And, I just feel like being able to study the game, especially whether it's NBA, professionally, or like college, it's just important to, just know keys and characteristics of becoming a great defender.
Dude, thank you. I think that's huge. There's so much you can learn from simply watching the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, like that's amazing. I think that's a lost art for a lot of players nowadays. Nobody watches the game, Liam. It's weird. Like, and there's other things that kids have nowadays to like get distracted, and that's fine. Like, there's more than what we used to have when we were younger. I don't even feel like I'm that old, but like, still watch the game. Like I don't understand why people don't watch the game. But if you go out there, you can see things. My example to your point would be, I remember Marcus Smart, who was on the Celtics for a long time. He was known for his defensive, tenacity and what he does. And he was discussing defensive like traits and little tendencies that he would pick up on an offensive player. So he's like, well, by watching film, I understood that this offensive player, the cadence with his dribble, he would only attack once the ball actually hit the ground, because he knew it was going to come. It was going to take X amount of seconds or half a second to come up to his hand. So that's when he would put his hand out and actually charge him on his hip. Like little things like that, understanding offensive players, like, what's their rhythm with the ball, and when the ball hits, when do you actually reach in to try to get a steal rather than just reaching in for no reason? Like little things like that, I think can go a long way. And if you watch those videos, it can give you a little bit of insight. And I think that's awesome that you do that. It speaks to why you're playing at the level that you are. And so, no, I mentioned earlier, Liam, and this is no knock on you, but as a sophomore, I didn't really think that you were physically there yet, which most sophomores are. I wasn't until a year after I graduated high school, to be quite frank. I was only I'm 6'2", but I was like a $180 my senior year in high school. And like, I didn't think I was that big at all. I was an undersized guard my whole life. And so what did you do to like develop? Did you hit the weight room? What were your trainings like over the last 3 years to try to really take care of your body and make sure that not only are you mentally prepared and all that, but you're also physically prepared for the next level?
No, for sure. And I think sophomore year, that whole state tourney, it was a big eye opener for me. It was like, I mean, I'm getting kind of, pushed around by these big football guys. Like, I wasn't really in the best shape. And I was like, okay, I really need to lock in. And one of the biggest things I learned was you got to make a friend with the weight room. I mean, you got to be in there all the time. So I asked Jack, because Jack was obviously the strong, super athletic guy. I was like, hey, who do you work out with? And he led me to these trainers, Matt and Mitch over at Competitive Edge in Meridian. And I've been with them ever since. And I go there 3-4 times a week. And it's changed. I feel like it's changed my game, and it's gotten me a little bit more ready for the college level. Because, I mean, not a lot of skinny guys are in college or in the NBA unless they're freak athletes. And I know myself, and I'm not the bounciest, I'm not the most athletic, but I just want to prepare myself and just put on some weight. And I just feel like, obviously, you got to work out a lot basketball wise, but you also got to put some time in the weight room. And if you make a friend in the gym, like if you just like make that your friend, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Dude, that's another lost art. I think a lot of kids just don't want to put the time in because they're like, well, what do I focus my time in? So this is what my follow-up to that would be. You got to get shots up. All right. I'm a big proponent of getting shots up. Right. Yeah. And you've seen me get pissed off when I'm shooting before. Yeah. I get a lot of shots up. I still do at the age of 35. I try to keep myself at least going in that regard. But like shots up, weight room, skill training, basketball practice with your team during the season, club ball, maybe if you're playing club. How do you actually, like, can I ask how you, Liam, prioritize your time to make sure that you could get those things in and still have a life?
No, for sure. Well, I'm gonna be honest, my whole life is pretty much basketball. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I've kind of gotten to where I'm at today is like my main focus is basketball. Like I don't go to parties, I'm not really hanging out with people 24/7. Like I'm mostly in the gym. And I think kind of the biggest advice piece for working out is like if you're just doing your team practice and that's all you're doing, you're not going to get like that much better. Like you got to put your own time in somewhere else, whether that's shooting on the gun and making sure the game like reps or, doing ball handling. And for me, what I would do is I would, obviously have my team practice, and then I would get in the gym later at night and shoot on the gun and get, 500,000 shots up. or I get with my trainer, and I'm working out with Keyshawn a lot now. He's been really helping me up my game. But if you're just doing your team practice, like you're not doing yourself that much better. Obviously, they're going to be great. I mean, depending on who your coach is, and what's that like. But you got to put more time in. And again, that thing is like just trying to stay in the gym, because for me, I've had the mentality of like, if I'm not putting time in, someone else is taking my spot at this level, or someone is getting more minutes. So kind of just staying in the gym, as much as you possibly can. I think that's the biggest, thing you could do to kind of succeed.
Did you try to get workouts in before school started sometimes?
Yeah. Well, I'm not the biggest morning person, so I would shoot really, really late at night. I'm like in the gym 10 to 12:30. That was kind of me, because I didn't have, especially this year, I don't have like a first or second period, so I was able to sleep in. But just finding time whenever you possibly can. And obviously my schedule would change depending on how I was feeling. I'd do some morning workouts as well. But yeah, I mean, just trying to stay in the gym. I think that's just the most important thing you could do, especially as an athlete wanting to play at the next level.
Totally. No, that's cool to hear. See, you're a night owl. I'm not. I've never been a night owl. Even in
Yeah.
high school, I was the morning guy. I'd always get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock. That was just me. But whenever you can make it happen, you still make it happen. I think it's awesome. So, Liam, one of the questions that a lot of the media members and fans around the state of Idaho, and even outside of Idaho, going into your junior and senior year, was like, is Liam going to step up as the leader, right? Because sophomore year, Owyhee had Jack Payne, right? Jack was kind of like the leader vocally. He was the leader in the play. And we knew that you were the stud athlete, the stud player, junior year even. Like, you could see that. But we were saying, like, what can he do as a leader? What more can he do as a leader to try to rally the troops? What do you feel like you improved most in from junior year when Jack was gone and you were there, to then your senior year? How did you improve in your leadership skills, so to speak?
I think the biggest thing for me was I had to get better at communicating, and I kind of found that out sophomore year, especially when Jack left, because Jack was very vocal in practices, off the court, and I was kind of like, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. And, obviously worked sophomore year because we had Jack as a leader, and he would tell me what to do and all that. And then junior year, we're looking around like, well, who's going to do that, So I had to step up junior year, and obviously things didn't go our way. We got upset Meridian first round of state, and I had to chip on my shoulder going into my senior year. I'm like, I'm not letting that happen again. And I want to make sure this team is locked in. So I think I was just very vocal, especially in practice and games when things were going our way. I'd huddle everyone up together and just kind of make sure everyone locks in on the same page. But I think being vocal helps teams win. Because if no one's talking, I mean, everyone's just looking around. And there was times during my junior year when I kind of let that slide. And that's probably a reason why weren't as successful as we were this year. So I think just getting your team vocal and kind of having someone who's making sure everyone's being vocal is a huge part.
Dude, that's such an underrated thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, I try to tell it to some of my players, and we're still coaching that to some of the guys that I've coached in the last 4 years of club ball, like the importance of being vocal. I mean, I'm a personal believer that if you get vocal, like it'll help you with confidence, even if it's not helping you physically in the game, but like once you start talking, for some reason you get a little more energy, you get a little boost, you start to actually see the game a little bit more. And I mean, here's an example. I remember one of the players was like, it was an NBA guy who was like, if you're on the backside block, you don't know what to say, like, I'm in help, or like you're just yelling from the backside, but you don't know what to say. Just say where you're standing. Be like, hey, I'm standing on the block. I'm on the block. I'm on the block. Hey, I'm at the 3-point line. Here, I'm in the wing. I'm in the wing. Like, just say where you're at. And what it naturally does is it, like, one, it keeps you talking, but you're actually involved in the game. And you start to actually cerebrally, like, figure out the game a little bit more because you're saying where you're out loud. So little things like that, I fully believe, are like a big piece of the game. People think it's not that important. Yes, it is important. I think that's awesome, man. Yeah. So one thing that I also thought that you improved on drastically in the last 3 years, especially your senior year, was just your overall ability to shoot the ball, right? Like, you were always a good shooter, but like from range, you extended your range to be more consistent, in my opinion. Like, you were more confident shooting it from the 3-point line. Then you'd pull up, you do a turnaround. Like, you had so much touch, but you extended your range, and that's like such a big piece of playing at the next level, is being able to like shoot from anywhere on the court. How do you, like, what were you doing? I mean, you mentioned 500 to 1,000 shots there, but maybe how do you gain confidence as a shooter for some of these guys out there that want to get there, want to extend their range, but maybe they don't know how to get that confidence as a shooter?
No, for sure. And I think to get confidence, you have to put the time in. And one of the things that I always make sure I'm doing, whether I'm working out or just shooting on the gun, is they have to be game-like reps. Because if you're not shooting game-like reps, you're not getting better. And when I'm seeing some certain guys at Owyhee not getting game-like reps, I'm like, look, it makes me mad. I'm like, well, you're never going to shoot that. You're not going to have a wide open three. I mean, very rarely. You're never going to have a wide open three and you're going to super slow into it. Like, they got to be like game-like reps, especially at the college level. I mean, you're going to have like 6'8" guys with, 7-foot wingspans closing out. You're like, how are you supposed to get that shot off? Or especially when I'm doing like dribbling workouts, like I got to make sure everything's quick. I'm losing the ball just so I'm training like that. So I think how to gain confidence is putting the time in, because I know if I work on a certain move or a certain shot and I shoot in the game, I'm like, hey, I've spent a lot of time doing this certain move. There's a good chance it's going to go in. I feel confident about it. So I think just spending time in the gym and spending time on something that you want to get better at will most likely just bring your confidence up.
Love that, man. What's your favorite memory looking back at your 3 years at Owyhee High School? You've got a couple state championships, played in a couple awesome tournaments, played some amazing teams during this time frame. What was your favorite memory at Owyhee specifically?
I think my favorite memory is probably one of the things I'll miss the most. Probably team dinners. Team dinners are special. Like, you get to learn stuff about people you never really knew about, and I mean, it's just a great way to connect. Like, obviously, winning state sophomore year was pretty big as well, but like, I'll never forget the conversations we had or how much fun we had like eating together at a table. Like, that's some of the most special things I've really liked in my high school career. Just hanging out with my guys and just talking, kind of putting basketball to the side for a little bit. I mean, it's pretty special in my opinion.
That's sick, dude. I love that too. Don't take those things for granted. You won't get those memories back. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Now, you started getting a little bit more attention in the media, a lot, like starting last year, but like this year, it started popping off. Baby Bird nickname, right? I thought it was hilarious. That started flying around.
Yeah.
All that. So what's interesting, Liam, is nowadays there is so much attention in the media, which is a good and bad thing, right?
Yes.
It can be bad if players don't know how to manage that. I spoke with a guy on my podcast a couple years back he was known as the Jewish Jordan back in the late 90s, and because he was Jewish and he was really, really good. His name was Tamir Goodman. Cool story. Sports Illustrated did a massive story on him back in the day. Anyway, I had him on the show, and he was talking about how as soon as the paper started publishing and Sports Illustrated started publishing stuff about him, he felt the pressure of it, right? And he talked about like how Michael Jordan never had to deal with the pressures that LeBron James has to deal with in regards to the media and the additional pressure. So now, as a high school student yourself, soon to be in college, the media started coming up. Did you ever feel additional pressures there? And if so, like, how did you navigate any of that, I guess?
No, for sure. And social media is, huge now, especially in our days now. But I think just kind of ignoring it at times was helpful. Obviously, there's great media, but sometimes it can create a lot of stress. And I just think like when kind of the whole thing kind of blew up, especially the Baby Bird stuff, I didn't really go on social media. I was kind of like, put it to the side. I was like, hey, man, I just got to focus on what I do best. And just, that's all I need to worry about. And again, like a lot of social media, it's people's opinions. And you really shouldn't listen to people's opinions, like, especially if it's not what you believe in. Like, you got to believe what you believe in and, not really care about what other people have to say and kind of just stick on your path. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, you just got to stay focused because there'll be good media and bad media. And you just got to stay on the path that you're on right now and kind of just finish strong.
I like that, man. Club basketball, that's a big focus now for a lot of basketball players. Anybody who's wanting to play at the next level, club is a great opportunity for them to, in my opinion, improve, if they're given the right circumstance and they take advantage of that opportunity. And I know that club basketball was a big thing in your journey, right? Like you play club basketball, travel and whatnot. I want to get your thoughts on club basketball and just like what your experience was there. And if you had, if you feel like it was beneficial for your progression, because we talked about Owyhee High School, but a lot of people talk about club because like, oh, that's where the kids get recruited as club. And I know Owyee's a little bit different in regards to what they're trying to accomplish there. Coach Harrington wants to get the exposure at the high school, not just in club ball, but you had a really successful club career. Like your select was very successful all around. Yeah. So like they've been the top dog since when I was in high school. They were like one of the only ones that were here back in the day besides Boise Flight. So like they're the original ones. They're the OGs. So I'm just curious your overall experience with club basketball and what you think about it.
No, for sure. And I could have played on a lot of different teams. I could have played for an EYBL, Adidas, all those circuits. But I chose to play under Clint Hordeman and Select, and it was a great choice because Clint's the kind of guy who he wants what's best for each kid. And the one thing about club is you want to be able to put your name out there, but you want to have someone who has your interest in mind, like your best interest. And Clint was one of them. And he was able to just help expose my game to big time colleges and stuff. But I had a great club is great for many reasons, but you have to find a coach and a team that values you and isn't just want your money, and I think that's the biggest problem a lot of people have is hey, this club looks great, they're big time. Hey, I'm just taking all my money, and then you're just sitting on the bench and not playing. You got to find a team where you're going to play. And I feel like Select has done a really good job at that. All their levels are really elite. And no, Select basketball, I just had a great time playing under them, and we went to big tournaments and stuff. And Select, it really helped my exposure, especially. I think one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest people that it impacted was Case. Case kind of blew up on Select. He, and Lapway is not a lot of exposure there, but he went down and played in Select, and we played in some big tournaments, and he had some big time offers from this past summer. So it affects people who don't get a whole lot of exposure, and I think that's what club is really good for. And I just think that you just have to navigate around club the right way.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good insight for athletes that are looking. And being a club coach myself, obviously I'm not at the top level like Clint Hordeman when they're coaching the top level of every program. But it is fun, but you do see that you have to be careful as an athlete to make sure you find the right situation for you. And obviously as a coach, I'd like to be selfish and say that I would love for you to play for my team. I want every one of the good players to be over here, but sometimes it might not be the best fit for you. So it is important to go and see what's going to be the best fit and who can get you to accomplish what your personal goal is. Clint Hordeman, by the way, shout out to Clint. I've known Clint since I was in the 4th grade. So when I was in the 4th grade, Liam, I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
Dude, he was over at Boise State, and he still, his mom was my teacher in 6th grade. She was my PE teacher. So I've known the Hordemans for a long time, but I remember Clint playing at Boise State. They were playing Washington. I always talk about this with him, but they were playing Washington, and Berto was on the team, and he was a monster. And Berto had a 30+ point performance against Washington. But they were down 20-4, and Boise State was getting rocked. It was a 20-4 start to the game. They go on a 17-0 run. And I just remember it was 20-18, and one of the guys hit Clint in the corner, and he drills a 3 to make it a 17-0 run. And Washington has to call timeout. It was 21-20. And I remember and then Boise State went on to win that game. It was one of the best games I've ever seen as Boise State. And I just love Clint because I remember that specifically during his days. He played a lot longer than that and way more games, but he was one of my favorite dudes. So it's cool to see him still involved in the community. I love both him and Vince Hordeman. Yeah. So shout out to the club scene. It can be very beneficial. What do you think was the biggest thing that you had to change? So one of the things, Liam, in club basketball is that some players that are the star in their school have to play a completely different role sometimes, and it's hard for them. And even this last weekend at the time of this recording, a lot of my guys, this is only our 3rd time being together. Some of it was their 2nd time being together. It's they didn't even know how to play with one another, and we don't even have any sets to run. They think that they're going to use what they did in high school. Their role in high school is going to directly transfer, and that's just not the case sometimes. Some of them need to learn different roles. What do you feel was the biggest thing you learned in regards to the role that you had to play in club as compared to high school?
Yeah, well, especially my sophomore, junior year, I was taking most of the shots for Owyhee. And when I'm playing club, I'm playing with guys like Case and, Barrett Wilson, some high-level guys. I'm not going to be taking every shot. And college coaches don't want to see one kid taking the shot every single time, on offense. They want to see what else you can do, pass, how good of a rebounder you are. That is huge. I think that's one of the biggest things I learned in club is you got to be a good rebounder. Coaches need that, especially on the offensive side, getting O boards. But I think just navigating, just seeing how your team is. Obviously, if you're the best on your team, I mean, it's okay to take some some tough shots. But with Case and all those guys, we just we're able to play through motion, just getting each other open looks, just making plays for each other. And I think that's the biggest thing. You just gotta know you gotta figure out your role. Maybe if you don't know how to do that, you talk with your team, like, hey, like, what do you guys think? Or talk with the coach, like, hey, what do you think my role is on this team? And I think that's probably the biggest part, just how to navigate like what you do at your own like high school and now what you're doing on this new club team that you're on.
Dope, man. Freaking sick. Now, recruiting, big time discussion for a lot of athletes.
Yeah.
And you're, going into now what's going to be your freshman year of college. There's been some changes. The college landscape for athletics is changing. Coaches move. There's transfer portals for players that can just leave at any moment. So within a year, a lot of stuff can change from a coaching standpoint, from a player standpoint, and you have to navigate that when you're looking. And I just want to get your overall thoughts on your experience, during the recruiting journey, so that these players that are looking up to you right now, Liam, especially kids from Idaho that probably want to do stuff that you're doing, they want to learn like the recruiting process and what you've gone through. And so if you could give any insight and advice on just the whole journey, that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, the recruiting process was very hectic, especially sophomore year. I kind of blew up on the scene, and a lot of college coaches were hitting me up. And for me, I had to learn and like figure out what school like valued me the most and had my best interest in mind. Because I could have picked the prettiest, nicest school with the best gear, the best location, and not play, and then maybe enter the transfer portal or just all sorts of stuff like that. So I had to try and find the school that valued me the most, had my goals and interests in mind, and a school that wants to develop me. Because schools might want you just so they could stack the roster and say, hey, we just got this kid. Like, hey, he's pretty good. And then they might not ever play you and believe in you. And for me, I mean, I just had to kind of find a school like that.
And you just said something that's very interesting, and it's they use it almost as a marketing ploy, and like they'll find some high level talent and they'll say, hey, we got this person to play. It's a marketing tactic.
Yeah.
And then they don't play you, and then you're having to find yourself in a different situation. It's even more difficult because you have to do another change. I guess, how would you go about doing that is my question. Is like, how do you, like, what were your tips of like finding the schools that had your best interest in mind? How do you know that if you're a player? That's what a lot of kids that I coach are concerned about, because a lot of them are going to go JUCO or maybe even, D2 potentially or NAIA. And they're like, I don't even know I don't know enough about their program to know what they need. So how did you go about like figuring out who's in their program, what is their scheme and all this stuff so that you can make the best choice for yourself?
No, for sure. And I think the first thing when a school would hit me up is I would research the school, like, hey, where are they located? What city are they in? What's their team looking like? How they do this season? Or what if they, how have they like played, their kind of style of ball? And then I'd hop on the phone with them and I'd call them like, hey, why are you kind of recruiting me? Like, where do you see me playing and like your style of play? And like, what do you see me doing in the future, like in your program? I think those are big questions you got to ask. And some of the colleges, they'll be honest with you, like, hey, we see you being a shooter, or we see you being our guy. And you kind of got to, value which one you kind of got to pick, like which one you value more. And then obviously there's the academic piece. And I wanted to find a good school that had the good academic piece, which obviously, USC had a great academic piece as well. So kind of finding what you value most. Like if you want academics first, maybe go to an academic school, and if their basketball team wants you as well, like maybe that's a second priority. But I think you just got to find where your priorities are. Like, are you okay with sitting on the bench your first year and then getting more minutes your sophomore year? There's just certain questions you have to ask that coach, like especially if it's a school you're really interested in, because you don't want to kind of get put to the side and you kind of fall out of the program after a couple of years.
Sweet, man. I hope everyone who's listening to that takes note of what Liam has been saying this entire time. That's why I always encourage you guys, rewind it, listen, take note, because this is the reason I have him on the show. He's a high-level athlete who understands the system at this point, and he's kind of in the thick of things right now trying to figure out that next piece. So he knows what's going on. He's literally experiencing all this stuff like in real time that we're talking about it. So let's get to know Liam Campbell outside of basketball. So you mentioned that basketball kind of is your life right now, which is interesting because LeBron just talked about that with JJ Redick on their podcast about if you want to be super successful at a sport like basketball, you got to sacrifice things. And sometimes that's sacrificing time with friends, sometimes it's sacrificing time with family, but you got to sacrifice. So it sounds like you do that a lot, and you have, because that's how you get to the level that you're at. But we need to know, Liam, outside of basketball. So what is a hobby that you have outside of basketball that you enjoy doing in your downtime? Like, what is your favorite thing to do outside of basketball?
I'm gonna be honest, I think my favorite thing is to watch movies. I'm a big movie guy. So whenever if I'm not, playing basketball, I'm either stretching in my room, just watching a movie. And I think obviously my favorite is Star Wars. I'm anything Star Wars related. I'm a big Star Wars guy. So I'm watching shows, I'm watching movies, I'm watching everything, just keeping up to date with everything going on.
Dude, Star Wars, what the frick, dude? I had no idea about that, bro. So what's your favorite Star Wars movie?
I mean, I gotta go with the third one, Revenge of the Sith.
That's wild, dude. Do you have all the collectible items and stuff from them too, or no?
So I have a son, but I used to be a big Lego guy. So I have a lot of Lego Star Wars sets. But with me, as I never really built them, I kept them in the box. So these like $300 sets I bought years ago, they don't sell them anymore. They go up in price. So I'm sitting on a little kind of some treasure, I guess. But I did have some Lego Star Wars stuff as a kid, and I kind of stopped collecting them, especially like maybe my freshman year. But yeah, I just have them like in some storage bins. Just if I ever want to sell them, I could. But yeah, I'm a big Star Wars guy.
Yo, that's so sick. I didn't know that, and I also didn't know the Legos thing either. That's why I like to do these podcasts. My son, who's 7, loves Legos. He would probably love to hear that part of it. That's awesome. When you get ready for a game, Liam, what's like, do you have music that you listen to? What's your like routine pregame when like the day of a game? What is your routine?
Yeah, so obviously you got to take a pregame nap. Those are essential. I just feel like you got to, to get your mind right. I think that's essential for especially game days. And then I would eat. My parents would make me spaghetti. I think that was just a great way for energy wise. And I'd eat a banana after that, right before the game. And everyone, a lot of people, they like to get locked in with music and stuff. But I feel like if I listen to music, or if I'm in that zone, I get too locked in, and then I'm start thinking about like too much. So one of the things I do is I kind of just go in the locker room and, I start playing like mobile games on my phone. It keeps me relaxed. So I'll play like Clash Royale, Clash of Clans. That kind of just relaxes me. And I'm like, everyone's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're not locked in. But like, in reality, I am locked in personally. Like, it's keeping me relaxed. Then obviously I'll get form shots upstairs and get ready for the game and stretch. But that's kind of my like pregame ritual.
Dude, that's funny you say that, man. I've talked to people about, everyone would listen to like rap music and stuff. That's usually what I would like listen to just to get pumped up in the weight room and stuff. But like when it came to like boxing matches or basketball games, I listened to Michael Jackson, which everyone thinks that's so dumb, but it like kind of like soothed my body. It got my adrenaline to kind of just stay low so I wouldn't get too hyped up, and then have an adrenaline dump in the middle like of a match or a basketball game. So it's like I listened to Michael Jackson. So that was my way of relaxing. It wasn't the pump up music that everybody like listens to get hyped up.
Yeah.
I didn't want my nerves going too much,
For
so
sure, yeah.
Dude, that's so dope.
Yeah.
So Liam, as you look back on the last, 3 years, or basically, let's not even just say the last 3 years. Let's talk about your whole entire life. Like this, looking back at your life of basketball, California, Idaho, whatever. What's the biggest life lesson thus far that the sport has taught you?
I think the biggest life lesson is going to be a lot of ups and downs, but you have to push through. And there's been games I've lost, there's been games I haven't played well, and there's games I have played well. And just the biggest thing is to keep pushing forward no matter what.
And are you going to cut your hair, or are you going to keep this thing?
Oh man,
through college?
It's been a little long right now. I might get a little trim, but I might have to keep this baby bird thing going.
Ooh, dude, I like it, bro. I like it. So, last question, man. What are the next steps for Liam Campbell as of right now? Like, what are your plans moving forward? I mean, continuing the recruiting journey, trying to figure out the spot, and then what do you hope to see in the next year to 2 years in your journey athletically?
No, for sure. I think for me right now, obviously I decommitted from USC because of the coaching change. So just finding, where I'm going to go now, just navigating that. Obviously I can go back, stay at USC. I could follow my coaches at SMU or go to a completely new program. Everything's up in the air right now. It's just finding a good place where, I could succeed on the court and off the court academically are probably the most important things I have focused on right now, as well as obviously graduating this year. And I just think, obviously my long-time goal is to play professionally. So however that might look, whether NBA, overseas, G League, that's kind of my long time goal. So however that may look, however long that might take, I don't know. But, I'm just have to focus on what's happening now and just got to keep staying in the gym.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll be rooting for you, man, on here to the next steps of your journey. I'm actually really excited to see, what you do. I'll be rooting for you wherever you go and wherever you end up deciding to play ball at the next level. And hopefully, give it a year or 2, 3, 4, whatever it takes to maybe you'll be playing at the next level and we can root for you then. Maybe we'll do a follow-up on the podcast in a couple of years and chat with a professional. We'll see how it takes you, man. But Liam, I just appreciate your time, brother. I appreciate you finally getting, to be able to join me on the podcast. And it's been a pleasure watching you and cheering for you the last couple of years. And I'm just stoked to see where you go moving forward. But I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. For all those listening, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.